Okay, welcome back to my channel. Going to do a quick little news of the day type thing here. Following 5 stories going to this weekend's second race at Silverstone. These are 5 stories that I feel have been trending for the last 2 or 3 days, and I'd like to go over them before we get into our weekend action coming up. So first, Pirelli says that the tire failures were related to wear levels and extreme forces during the British Grand Prix. Obviously, it created a very exciting end to that race. They came out and said that the F1 cars are racing at a faster pace than what they are used to. They were about a 1.2 second faster pace than what they had 1 year ago. So the 2020 F1 cars were some of the cause of this issue. And then also the drivers going on longer stints than what Pirelli expected them to do on that compound. So it wound up being kind of a one-stop strategy, which was not something Pirelli was planning for. They went over that 40-lap expectancy. So it was the majority of the race, honestly, on one compound, and they believe that's what caused all the issues in the tires. So for this week, they do plan on bringing a softer compound tire that should result in at least 2-stop strategy for this weekend. They're trying to kind of force the drivers into that. The softer compound will have a lot faster pace, but will degrade a lot quicker. So that should force at least 2 stops coming up this weekend. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's where Pirelli's coming from. Renault joined by Ferrari in questioning the Racing Point cars now. So Ferrari has formally requested that the FIA and F1 to clarify regulations regarding the Racing Point cars. So Renault, as you know, every single week after every Grand Prix has formally filed a complaint about the Racing Point pink Mercedes cars, and now Ferrari is joining them in that. So maybe this will put a little more pressure to get some answers from FIA and F1. We've been basically pending a decision on that since the beginning of the season. So we'll see what happens with that as more teams now starting to join in on the questioning of the Racing Point cars. Speaking of Racing Points, Nico Hülkenberg's did not start was caused by a loose bolt from a clutch housing. So that, unfortunately, a small bolt and that clutch housing is the only reason why Nico Hülkenberg didn't get that, what would have been a very cool start for everyone. He still may race this weekend. Racing Point is still unclear on what the quarantine protocols are actually going to be that Sergio Perez will have to follow. There's an outside chance, I guess, Perez could still race. From my understanding on it, I believe it's at least a 10-day quarantine, so I don't think Perez will qualify to run in this race. And if he doesn't, Nico Hülkenberg will be in the seat again, and so we'll finally get to see him drive that car. But I guess there's still a chance that Checo could be there. Also, some news coming out that Nico Hülkenberg could be tapped to be Mercedes reserve driver moving forward. So we'll see. Haas's Günther Steiner calling out issues with the F1 penalty system. So Günther Steiner has said that the system is broken and needs to be looked at, as it's not very fair considering some of the way the penalties have been levied. So Haas gets a 10-second penalty during the Hungarian Grand Prix for their communications during the formation lap. So that means both drivers got a 10-second penalty. Whereas Alex Albon only got a 5-second penalty for taking out one of the Haas cars and Kevin Magnussen. So their collision during the British Grand Prix resulted in Kevin Magnussen retiring from the race in the first few laps. And Günther Steiner is asking, why is that only a 5-second penalty when it is a situation where one of his cars can continue versus a 10-second penalty that both Haas cars got, which ultimately didn't really affect anyone else's race. It just kind of was a strategy call that they did and had some communications. So he's kind of calling out maybe on the scale of justice here, that 5-second penalty doesn't seem to really weigh, should not weigh the same amount as the 10-second penalties they got for a formation lap strategy call. So I actually kind of agree with him on that. If you don't agree with him, let me know what you think, but I think it's a great point. Finally, Williams on the attack. So George Russell says that it's really nice to be a driver on the track. And he said that about Silverstone in an interview, saying that he believes that Silverstone was the first time that he can remember passing other F1 cars that were not a Williams car, which he might be right on. I don't actually know off the top of my head, neither did he, but he feels that Williams are starting to have the pace to be able to move up that backfield and start not maybe being dead last or second to last every single race. So he seems pretty encouraged. I think George Russell has been fantastic in qualifying. I thought he raced really well in the British Grand Prix. So can they keep that going? We'll see. Williams maybe starting to slowly pull themselves off of that bottom ring of Formula One racing. But those are the top 5 stories I was following today. If any more news, major news comes out, obviously I'll throw it up here. But I think these are going to be your top 5 main stories going into the Grand Prix this weekend. So if you like what you see, remember to please hit subscribe, hit like, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching.